Thank you for tuning in to the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this segment, we are going to be talking about some of the matchups of the week and some of the best games that happened this week, as well as what I think are going to be some of the best games going into, because this week is obviously not over. We still have games on Friday, and we still have games on Saturday before the Super Bowl. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about all the games that were played this week, as well as maybe some of these games that are going into this week. Because the problem with this week, when picking matchup of the week now, is that a lot of these games were blowouts, and a lot of these games weren't really that fun to watch. So it's a little bit difficult to pick like what exactly is the matchup of the week, given the fact that a lot of these teams have gotten blown out. So the Clippers game against the Hawks, that was a great game to watch, in my personal opinion. There was a lot of scoring, and I know a lot of mainstream media and a lot of casual fans love to see all that scoring. The final score was 149 to 144. Yeah, that's a lot of scoring, and that's what a lot of people like to see now. And it really shows how versatile the Clippers are. Adding James Harden in from that trade, obviously, Kawhi Leonard being able to create shots on his own, Harden being able to create shots for the other team, as well as having a competent bench. The Clippers are a great team, probably the best team in the West for the regular season. Again, I say this every single time I talk about the Clippers. I have to see it in the playoffs. I say the same thing every single time, and so I don't want to harp on it too much. But the big problem that I noticed is like figuring out how to share the ball between the Clippers. Because they have so many stars, it's like they all have to like share the ball with each other, and the question becomes, what happens if one of your stars has an off night? Like, for example, Paul George was in the Pelicans game. He was having a very, very off night. And so there comes a point where it's like when you have all of those offensive weapons, and like Harden was playing amazing in the first half, and I just couldn't help but think, why would he take a back seat, and why would he try to do less in the second half? Like, a lot of these players, I feel like they need to be, on the Clippers, they need to be a little bit more assertive when they are having a great game. I understand, like, you need Paul George in that lineup. You need, like, his production. But if he's not getting it going, that's ultimately just going to hurt your offense more than it is helping it. And when you have other pieces that could produce while he's not playing well, use them. Like, Harden should have taken over the game, like completely take over the game in the second half, in my personal opinion. Like, I understand they wanted to get Paul George going so that way, like, he'd be ready and whatnot, but, like, still, like, they needed to either let Harden or Kawhi operate a little bit more. They need to know when to stop sharing the ball and when to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more selfish. And that's something that obviously the team still needs to work on, but again, no big deal. They've been winning a lot of their games. They are fourth in the Western Conference, I believe. Again, like it changes every single time from fourth to one. It is very difficult to keep up. So with that in mind, like, excuse me, I'm parched. With that in mind, they do need to figure out how to share the ball a little bit more. That's my personal take on it. Another great matchup was the Bucks going against Phoenix, KD going against Giannis. That's always a great matchup. Obviously, the Bucks ended up losing because Doc Rivers is really not adjusted to the system yet. I'm going to be nice and say that he needs some time in order to adjust with this lineup and rotation. Maybe Patrick Beverley is going to uplift this team. He's coached Patrick Beverley before, so maybe having a familiar face in the lineup would definitely help the team. And there was no Dame in that lineup as well, so that also hurt their offensive production, which might have played into them losing this game, but still, they have not been able to win they have not been able to win a lot of games with Doc Rivers, and it is very, very concerning if you're a Bucks fan. Very, very concerning. So, the Suns, they really don't have any defense, but it seems like they're all in on like the scoring lineup. So if they can stay efficient with this scoring lineup, then they're a very difficult team to beat. Obviously, we know how difficult it is to guard Kevin Durant. We know how difficult it is to guard Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. So with that in mind, this isolation lineup is a serious, serious task. It is very difficult to guard, given how great and how productive all of these players are. But again, we'll see how they do in the postseason. Phoenix Suns, with Kevin Durant, they lost in Game 6 to the Denver Nuggets in a blowout loss at home, which is honestly the only player that went to play that game was Cameron Payne. Everybody else was just really bad, really terrible, and Kevin Durant did not produce at all. Devin Booker was trying his best. He didn't produce at all. So with that in mind, it's a little bit difficult to scale how deep this team can make it in the playoffs, because Kevin Durant, as a Brooklyn Nets fan, he has not done anything in the postseason without Golden State. So how is he going to fare with this Phoenix Suns team? And that's sort of my worry going into the playoffs with Kevin Durant. I mean, obviously, as a Nets fan, I hope he loses, but then again, this lineup, it's heavily reliant on Kevin Durant scoring and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal remaining efficient and remaining healthy as well. So how is this going to play out in the postseason? Because again, Kevin Durant has not done anything without Golden State, and I can't stress that enough. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm being a little bit too harsh on KD or if I'm not, but I personally think he hasn't done anything in the postseason without Golden State. I mean, he blew a 3-1 lead, so there's something, but I digress. And the most recent games that I'm actually going to include on this list are all blowouts, but I liked watching these games, and they definitely gave me a much better perspective on where each team was going. So the most recent game, obviously, was Golden State going against the Pacers. Now, I personally, while I am a LeBron fan, I am not going to deny Steph Curry's greatness, and I'm not going to say that he isn't fun to watch. Him shooting the ball in that game, it was a great matchup. It was phenomenal. His scoring, his three-point shooting, the best three-point shooter the league has ever seen. And while it might not have been a close game, it definitely helped me get an idea of where this Golden State team really is. Again, they're another team, I actually didn't mention this before, but they're another team that did not make any moves in the trade deadline. And a lot of people thought that it was time to move on from Clay and Draymond Green, but obviously, not obviously, in my personal opinion, I thought that Golden State was going to stick with the big three because of what they've done for that organization. And they did exactly that. So I have a feeling that all of those players, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, they're not leaving. They're going to retire as Golden State Warriors because that's the right way to do it. I know the NBA is a business, but there comes a time where you have to just forget the business part entirely and just give those players, reward those players by retiring as a Golden State Warrior, given how much they've done for that franchise. And again, on the performance last night, Steph Curry, he made 11 threes. And these were difficult shots that he was making. These were really difficult three-pointers that he was making. And it was very fun to watch. It's always a great treat to watch Stephen Curry. Even as a LeBron fan, it's always great to watch Steph Curry. Halliburton wasn't really that good in this game. He still got 11 assists, though, but only 5 points. And again, big problem. The defense. There's no reason why Steph Curry should be left that wide open in any game. It doesn't matter what the score is. He should not be left wide open because he will absolutely kill you. And the Knicks, they played, kill you on the offensive end. Excuse me. The Knicks played, they matched up against the Mavs, as I mentioned previously. Luka also had a great game. He absolutely owned the Knicks. Again, not something that the Knicks should worry about, as I mentioned previously, but watching Luka Doncic play that game, that was a great game from him. He had this really, really cool behind-the-back pass that he threw to the paint and got him an assist. He was just on a completely different level, and there was nothing stopping him that game. It's always a treat to watch Luka play basketball. And another matchup was the Bucks going against the Wolves, as I mentioned previously. The Bucks need to hit that panic button. They need to figure out what the problem is, and they need to fix it now. I know it is difficult for Doc Rivers to adjust certain things, but regardless, they need to. They need to do that. They have to do that. Otherwise, this team is going to be bounced out the first round. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if they missed the playoffs at this rate. with how many games that they've been losing and to the teams that they've been losing to and the leads that they keep blowing, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up not making the playoffs. I really wouldn't. And it pains me to say that because Giannis is a great power forward, and he's on the way of becoming, if he isn't already, a top 5 power forward that the NBA has ever seen. He's on his way there. So, and could arguably be top 3. But that's another conversation for another time. But they just can't win with Doc. They really can't. And bringing that new coach, getting rid of their old coach, terrible, terrible decision. Again, pardon me, I am parched. It is really difficult talking for an hour and however long this show usually lasts for. But it's as if Dame has never left Portland. And he still needs the help. I mean, granted, he does have the help now, but it's like they aren't doing well as a team. And the problem has been in their defense. Brook Lopez, I've said this before, Brook Lopez drops really low on the pick and roll. And that's sort of the strategy that they go with. And I understand it's like they have to make those threes, but with how talented a lot of offenses are, they're going to make those threes if you give them the open looks. So they can't really bank on the teams missing anymore. They have to actually defend, and it's a really difficult task when you have Damian Lillard in the starting lineup who can't defend. But I talk about the games that happen, and obviously this week isn't over, like I mentioned before, so let's talk about a matchup that I think will be the matchup of the week, which is the Lakers going up against the Pelicans. LeBron against Zion, LeBron versus Zion. I desperately want Zion to succeed in this league. There's a lot of jokes going around about like him being a little overweight and stuff like that. Stephen A. Smith said that he was eating the table, which was really funny, but I really want Zion to succeed. He is a freak athlete. Other than LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo, he is one of the greatest finishers around the basket I have ever seen. Yes, even at that young age and even with his size, he is absolutely amazing, phenomenal player, and I have a feeling that this game is going to go back and forth between the King and Zion Williamson. And the Pelicans are also coming off of a win against the Clippers. They always own the Clippers. So with that in mind, they might come in with a lot more confidence because this LA team is a lot worse than that other LA team. But again, like, this would be a statement game for the Lakers, and they have LeBron. I would never put anything past LeBron. He has the tendency to will his team to win games. So with that in mind, I think it's going to go back and forth between Zion and LeBron. Definitely has the potential to be matchup of the week. This would be a statement game for the Lakers that they're here and they're ready to make noise for the postseason because, again, like I said, no trades were made. So this needs to be a big game that they win, given how they lost to the Denver Nuggets. But with that, we are out of time for this show. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content updates. And again, before I begin this segment, I'd like to remind all of you, please, to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. Put your comments directly above on the screen. That is gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, you guys, the viewers. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. It is displayed below every single ticker of the show segment as well as in the description below. And with that, I am your host, Nelson, and thank you once again for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, and as always, take care.